When you get older, no matter how free you are, don't visit the homes of these four people. There's something about age that teaches you things you never understood when you were younger. As the years pass, you start to see the world more clearly, not through the excitement of youth, but through the steady, measured eyes of experience. You learn that time is precious, dignity matters, and that not every open door is an invitation meant for you. I want to share something important with you today, something that might save you from unnecessary heartache and disappointment. Because as we grow older, no matter how free we may feel, there are some places we simply should not go. There are certain homes we should never visit, no matter how tempting or familiar they may seem. And by the time we finish, you'll understand exactly why. Before we go further, I'd love to know where you're joining us from. And if you find wisdom in these words, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. It helps keep these conversations going, and I'd love to have you as part of this journey. Now, let's get into it. You see, when we were younger, we never thought much about where we went or who we spent our time with. We could walk into anyone's home, sit for hours, and leave without much thought. But as we age, something changes. Our presence starts to carry more weight. People see us differently, and the way they treat us changes too. There's a saying, a guest after 3 days starts to smell. And while that's an old phrase meant to warn people about overstaying their welcome, there's a deeper truth hidden inside. It's not just about time, it's about place. There are certain homes that, no matter how free you are, you should never step foot in. Because the moment you do, you lose something. Your peace, your dignity, or maybe even the respect you've spent years earning. Let me tell you about the first type of home you should never visit when you get older. It's the home where you are only tolerated, not welcomed. Now, you might think, but what if it's family? What if it's an old friend? Let me tell you something. The worst kind of loneliness isn't being alone. It's being in a place where you're not wanted. And when you get older, you start to notice things that younger people ignore. You notice when people greet you out of obligation, not genuine warmth. You notice when their smiles don't reach their eyes. You hear the sigh in their voice when you call, the hesitation when you say you'll stop by. There's no greater pain than realizing that someone who once cherished your presence now only tolerates it. And it's even worse when you force yourself into that space, hoping to relive what once was. Maybe it's a relative, a child, a sibling, or an old friend. You remember the days when their door was always open, when they'd greet you with joy and pull up a chair before you even sat down. But now, you walk in and feel like an afterthought. They check their phones while you speak, their conversations are rushed, and their body language tells you everything you need to know. They are waiting for you to leave. So why put yourself through that? When you were younger, you could afford to ignore these things. You could chase after people, make excuses for them, and tolerate cold treatment because you thought things would change. But now, you should know better. You should protect your peace, your dignity. If someone does not welcome you with warmth, do not darken their doorstep. Walk away with grace. Because here's the truth. People make time for what they value. They open their doors wide for those they love. And if you find yourself feeling like an unwanted guest in someone's home, it's not a mistake. It's a message, one you should listen to. The mistake that many people make as they get older is thinking they need to prove their worth. They keep showing up, hoping that one day things will go back to how they used to be. But the reality is, the past is gone. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you free yourself from the burden of seeking love where it no longer exists. It's a hard truth, but it's a necessary one. There's no shame in walking away from a place where you're not valued. In fact, it's one of the wisest things you can do. Because at this stage in life, your time is precious. You shouldn't waste it sitting in someone's house feeling like a burden. You shouldn't spend your days trying to rekindle a bond that is already faded. Instead, You should go where you are celebrated. Spend time with people who light up when they see you. Visit homes where you feel at ease, where your presence is appreciated, where you can sit for hours without feeling like an inconvenience. Because that's what real connection feels like. That's what home truly is. So remember this. When you get older, no matter how free you are, do not visit the home where you are merely tolerated. Before we continue, let me ask you, have you ever walked into a place and felt uneasy, like something was just off? Maybe the people smiled, the conversation seemed normal, but deep down, you felt something wasn't right. If you've ever experienced that, pay close attention to what I'm about to say next. Because the second home you should never visit when you get older is the one filled with constant negativity and gossip. You see, when we were younger, we could tolerate a lot. We had the energy to sit through nonsense, to entertain pointless drama, and even to engage in it ourselves. But as we age, we begin to understand that peace is more important than excitement, and negativity is a slow poison that eats away at our spirit. Yet, there are some homes where negativity is the main dish, served fresh every single day. You know the kind of house I'm talking about. The moment you walk in, the conversation is heavy with complaints. Someone is always the victim. Someone else is always to blame. They talk about what went wrong in their lives, who wronged them, and why the world is unfair. And if they're not complaining, they're gossiping, tearing apart people who aren't even in the room. Maybe it's an old friend's house. Maybe it's a relative's home. Maybe it's even a neighbor's place where you sometimes drop by for a chat. But every time you leave, you feel drained, like the air got sucked out of your lungs. And yet, people keep going back. Why? Because negativity can be addictive. At first, it feels harmless. You sit, you listen, you nod along. But over time, you start absorbing it. You find yourself thinking about those complaints, carrying that bitterness with you, feeling weighed down by problems that were never even yours to begin with. And just like that, without even realizing it, you've let someone else's misery become part of your life. Now, don't get me wrong. Life is hard, and everyone has struggles. There's nothing wrong with talking about difficulties or sharing burdens. That's what real friends and family are for. But there's a big difference between sharing burdens and spreading toxicity. Some people don't want advice. They don't want solutions. They just want to complain. They thrive on negativity because it gives them something to talk about. And if they have nothing negative to share, they'll dig into someone else's life, spreading gossip like wildfire. Now, here's the dangerous part. If you sit in a home where gossip is the main conversation, you might think you're just listening. But one day, when you're not there, guess who they'll be talking about? That's right, you. Because people who gossip don't have loyalty. They talk about everyone, and eventually, they'll talk about you too. So, when you get older, don't let yourself be dragged into that kind of environment. Don't waste your time in places where the energy is always negative, where the air is filled with complaints, and where people thrive on pulling others down. Instead, seek out homes where the conversation uplifts you. Surround yourself with people who bring peace, not drama. Visit places where you can laugh, where you can reminisce about good times, and where you leave feeling lighter, not heavier. Because here's the truth. As we age, our time becomes more precious. Every moment we spend absorbing negativity is a moment we could have spent enjoying life. And at this stage, don't you deserve peace? So, when you get older, no matter how free you are, do not visit the home that thrives on negativity and gossip. So far, we've talked about two types of homes you should never step foot in. First, the home where you are merely tolerated, not truly welcomed. Second, the home filled with negativity and gossip, where your spirit gets drained just by being there. Now, let's talk about the third kind of home, one that can be even more damaging if you're not careful. Because the third home you should never visit when you get older is the one where your self-respect is slowly taken away. Now, what do I mean by that? There are certain homes where, no matter how much you've achieved in life, no matter how much wisdom you carry, you will always be made to feel less than. It might be the home of a wealthy relative who subtly reminds you that they are doing better than you. Every time you visit, they make little comments about their new car, their latest vacation, their expensive furniture. Not because they want to share their joy, but because they want to remind you of where they stand. Or maybe it's the home of an old friend who can't let go of the past, the kind who still treats you like the person you were decades ago, ignoring all the growth and wisdom you've gained over the years. They joke about your past mistakes, bring up embarrassing moments, and refuse to see you as anything more than who you used to be. And sometimes, it's even family members who make you feel like you're not good enough. They may dismiss your opinions, talk down to you, or act like your presence is a burden rather than a blessing. You might not even notice it at first. You tell yourself, oh, they don't mean any harm. But over time, you start feeling smaller every time you visit. You start questioning yourself. You start shrinking just to fit into the space they've created for you. Let me tell you something. As you get older, you should never put yourself in places where you are not respected. Respect isn't just about big words or fancy gestures. It's about how people make you feel when you're in their presence. Do they listen when you speak? Do they value your time? Do they treat you as someone with wisdom and experience? Or do they make you feel like an inconvenience? The sad truth is, some people will only respect you based on what you can offer them. When you're young and strong, they admire you. When you have money, they welcome you. But the moment they think you have nothing left to give, their attitude changes, and that's when you see their true nature. But here's the thing. You are not obligated to keep showing up where you are not valued. You don't owe anyone your presence. You don't have to sit through conversations that belittle you. You don't have to force yourself into spaces where your worth is ignored. At this stage in life, you have earned the right to choose peace over pretense, dignity over disrespect. Now, some people might say, but what if it's family? What if I have no choice but to visit? Here's the answer. You always have a choice. You can choose how often you visit. You can choose how long you stay. You can choose not to engage in conversations that belittle you. And if it ever reaches a point where your self-respect is being destroyed, you can choose to walk away completely. Because, here's the truth, people who truly love and respect you will never make you feel small. Think about the people in your life right now. Who are the ones that uplift you? Who are the ones that make you feel important, seen, and appreciated? Those are the homes you should visit. Those are the relationships you should nurture. Life is too short to keep proving yourself to people who have already decided that you are not enough. You don't need their approval. You don't need to fit into their version of who you should be. We've talked about 3 types of homes you should avoid. The home where you are merely tolerated, the home filled with negativity and gossip, and the home where your self-respect is taken away. Each of these places slowly chips away at your peace, your dignity, and your happiness. Now, let's talk about the 4th and final home, the one that may seem harmless at first but can have serious consequences if you're not careful. Because the 4th home you should never visit when you get older is the one where you are only called upon for favors. At first, it feels nice. Someone invites you over, asks for your advice, wants to spend time with you. But then, you notice a pattern. They only call when they need something. They only welcome you when there's a task to be done. Maybe it's a distant relative who suddenly remembers you exist when they need financial help. Maybe it's an old friend who only calls when they need a ride, a favor, or a shoulder to cry on. Maybe it's even a family member who treats you like a personal assistant rather than someone to be cherished. And the worst part, the moment you stop saying yes, the invitations stop coming. You realize that your worth in their eyes was never about who you are. It was about what you could do for them. Let me tell you something. You are not a tool to be used. You are not an obligation. You do not exist just to be at the service of others. There is a difference between helping out of love and being taken advantage of. True relationships are built on mutual respect, not one-sided convenience. But sadly, as we get older, some people see us as easier to manipulate. They assume we have time, they assume we don't have boundaries, and they assume we'll always say yes, because that's what we've done before. And if you're not careful, you will spend your later years being pulled in every direction, not because people love you, but because they know they can use you. So what should you do? It's simple. Start saying no. If someone only calls when they need a favor, start declining. If they only welcome you when there's something to be gained, stop showing up. If they get upset when you set boundaries, that's your sign. They were never truly there for you in the first place. Because the truth is, people who genuinely care about you will not stop calling just because you stop doing favors. They will still want to see you, talk to you, and spend time with you without expecting anything in return. But those who only see you as useful, the moment you stop serving them, they disappear. And that is a blessing. When you get older, your time becomes even more valuable. You shouldn't be spending it running around for people who don't truly care. Instead, spend it with those who bring you joy, peace, and genuine companionship. Think about the people in your life right now. Are there some who only call when they need something? Are there relationships that feel more like obligations than true connections? If so, it may be time to step back and reclaim your time. Because here's the final truth. When you get older, no matter how free you are, do not visit the home where you are only valued for what you can give, not for who you are. So, let's bring it all together. If you truly want to live with peace in your later years, avoid these 4 types of homes. The home where you are merely tolerated, not truly welcomed. The home filled with negativity and gossip, where your spirit gets drained. The home where your self-respect is taken away, where you feel smaller instead of valued. The home where you are only called upon for favors, not for real companionship. Instead, spend your time where you are celebrated, where your presence is cherished, and where you can truly be at peace. Life is too short to waste your days in places that do not nourish your soul. To wrap up this discussion, let's take a moment to reflect. Life has a way of teaching us lessons, often the hard way. When we were younger, we moved through the world freely, visiting anyone and everyone without a second thought. But as we grow older, we begin to understand that not every door is worth walking through, and not every invitation is a sign of genuine warmth. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. You have spent years building your life, gaining wisdom, and learning through experience. Now is the time to choose where you invest your energy. If a place does not bring you joy, if the people inside it do not respect you, if your presence is only tolerated, or if you are merely valued for what you can give, then it is not a home worth visiting. Instead, choose spaces that make you feel welcomed, respected, and appreciated. Surround yourself with people who value your presence, not just your usefulness. Give your time to those who bring you peace, not stress. Because in the end, the quality of your later years is not measured by how many places you visit, but by how many places truly feel like home. So, as you move forward, remember, you owe your presence to no one. Choose peace, choose respect, choose yourself. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you realized you were only being valued for what you could do, not for who you are? Have you ever had to walk away from people who took advantage of your kindness? Let's talk in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences.